AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Ganes Kesari. Ganes is the co-founder and chief decision scientist at Gramener. Ganes, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, JP.
It's our pleasure. So let's start with yourself, Ganes. Can you walk us through your technical background, where you first got started, some of the roles that you've held along the way, and take us up to just before you founded Gramener?
Sure. I have about 18 years of experience in technology, all of it using technology to solve business challenges. And I started off my career with programming. I used to program in COBOL, mainframes, COBOL. So those were the days. I played a variety of roles, and then I switched into business analysis and management kind of roles. It's project program managing stuff and leading engagements. Which were transformations using a variety of technologies. And that was the first half roughly of my career. And then we decided to start something on our own, me and my co-founders. And that's when we stumbled upon this idea of data science and consumption of data, making it easier. And then Gramener was born.
Excellent. Thank you for the background. So you talked about stumbling upon the idea with your co-founder. So can you talk us through the idea behind Gramener and then explain at a high level what the business does, what problems you're solving, and what customers you're working with?
Initially, we were trying out a variety of ideas as a very, very early stage startup. And what we found resonating very well with potential clients was the challenge of consuming data. So at that time, we're talking about 2010-11, when the enterprise BI platform, business objects, and all of those were there. Big data and AI and all of these were not as much of a buzz back then. At least AI was going through yet another winter. It was just about to get revived. And at that stage, organizations were having challenges in connecting the decision making to the data, which to some extent is there today, but it was more pronounced back then. There were a lot of reports and even visualizations were in the early stages. So we saw the need to, identify relevant, strong insights from data using analytics. And number two, converting those insights into consumable data stories using information design and going way beyond basic visual dashboards. So that was the concept, and we spoke to people, and that seemed to resonate very well. We tried out a couple of pilots, and with the very first client, we worked with a large telecom client, and that pilot was very successful, and we got our first deal. So that way we got started, and that theme has kind of sustained till today. So we call it insights as stories. We bring in the right analytics, whether it is simple business analytics, machine learning, or AI, and at the other end, data storytelling. And we have a low-code platform, which we call Gramix. So it's a combination of these three: analytics, visuals, and low-code platform to provide specific solutions to business problems. While there are a lot of off-the-shelf products, we take a consulting-led approach in terms of identifying what are the best problems to solve and how to solve them using technology, and importantly, how to recognize the ROI from data. So that has been the focus at Gramener. And apart from implementation and all of that, which a lot of organizations do, we also help executives and companies through the journey end to end. It starts from identifying where to get started with data, how to pick the right projects, what kind of skills they will need in-house, how to organize the technology and their business teams for collaboration, and how to track ROI from data and how to attribute the success back to your analytics initiatives. And finally, how to move towards a culture of data. So this is the continuum I'm talking about, getting started with data to realizing value. At Gramener, we provide this end-to-end, and we have our advisory solutions. I lead our advisory and innovation practice. So we lead with that, and we have a strong implementation team using our low-code platform.
No, I appreciate that overview. Really good to hear. And I want to spend some time talking about the journey behind Gramener from when you first got started, some of the early challenges like every startup faces, to the key milestones and wins, because it's been 10 years now, if I'm right, and you guys have done incredibly well and have got lots of accolades, recognition from Microsoft, Deloitte, and a lot of other really high profile recognition that comes along with success. So I would love to learn about the early stage of the company, some of the challenges, how you guys overcame those, and the evolution of the business from startup to now fully fledged product and services company.
Sure. So the early stages, it was like when we had a few projects going on, there was always this question of should we do more of the, should we build products or should it be services? And we had this back and forth. At that time, a lot of products existed. So we when we did these projects, we also tried to build some concepts, and we checked with the clients. So what we found out was the need for specific bespoke solutions was always there. Whatever we built for one particular company, for instance, if we built something for one pharma company, even another pharma company working in the similar area, the approach would be very different. So one might be a market leader, another may be just starting off in that particular area with particular product. So they might need a completely different view to analytics. So that way, the perspectives are very different, and even within an organization, the two teams operate very differently. So there was a need for customization. So that way, that was something which we have retained, and which is why I called it as a consulting-led offerings. So that was one thing. And a second was in terms of the talent availability. I'm talking about 2011, when many of these roles were not defined. And we defined, one of the key roles we defined was that of the data translator. We used to call it data consultant, which I think about a few years back, McKinsey coined it as analytics translator, and this huge buzz around this role. So in 2011, we were slightly ahead of the industry in carving out this role. And that was very crucial for us, establishing the bridge between the business teams and with the technology implementation teams. So there were a lot of experimentations like this. So the role, then we formed this role, and we also did a lot of like hiring of freshers and training them in-house, because we did not get the ready-made skills from the market or from the academia. So we had to do a lot of training. Around that time, there was this realization that why don't we partner with universities and help them with the curriculum, so that the talent which comes out will be more geared to take on challenges in the industry, not just with Gramener, but with the industry at large. So that way, even from the first year of operation, we have partnered with several large universities. We started off in India. So with some of the biggest universities in India, we still have the collaboration. So we've been running guest lectures, running full classes, and also have been helping create the curriculum and content. So that was one other way we kind of give back to the industry to make sure that the talent has the right perspective and comes with the right experience. So this way, there were several challenges in terms of the industry positioning, the talent, and also expansion, the geographical expansion. We started off with India, and then today we have presence in US, in Singapore, in addition to India. So it's been a continuous learning path and an ongoing journey. And today we have about 250 people and over 200 clients we've worked with. So quite happy. And like you mentioned, there have been several awards to recognize our contribution. So we're very proud of that.
Yeah, I raised that because there's a lot of organizations who focusing on the consulting mix of product and services, and there's a lot of people in this space, but you guys have had continued sustained success and been recognized, Microsoft Gold Partner and many other high level awards with that. So I thought it would be important to find out how you guys have gone about doing so. Switching now to your customer base, and you've already given some insight into some recent examples, but can you talk to us about the customer life cycle, the different types of industries, different size of customers, and from first interaction to right the way through to support? What is the most common topics that you come across, and where are you and your team spending the majority of your time helping your customers?
So we work across 4 major verticals: pharma, there's media, and technology consulting firms like Deloitte, E&Y. And then we do a lot of work with NGOs and public sector with governments. So these 4 are our focus verticals. And with all of them, the complete value chain, like I mentioned, helping them start with a data science strategy. For many clients, we've helped them create their strategy or refine their data science strategy, helping them pick the right projects, build teams, the ROI and culture of data. So we work end to end. And if I talk about why the emphasis on some of these aspects, right? Because a lot of people talk about AI implementation, algorithms. So any event, or if you look at most of the books, there's a lot of focus on technology and technical implementation aspects. While that is good, I think a lot of the other areas are getting ignored. 2 areas which has repeatedly come up in multiple industry surveys of leaders. So I'll talk about 2 of those challenges. One is how to pick the right projects, the right analytics projects. And number 2, how to justify the investment in data and how to show the value from data. So these 2 are things which chief data officers they struggle in getting this done. If you look at why, in terms of picking the projects, right? Let's take an example of a media company, and this is from some of the examples in the work we have done. Say a media broadcaster who's broadcasting programs on TV. If assuming they are early stages of their data science journey, let us say they are doing basic reporting. If they are trying to start, the natural reaction would be, okay, why don't we apply AI to do some prediction? Can we predict for instance, our sales, or can we predict how well the programs would perform? So when someone tries to take technology and apply it to any use case within the domain, they might pick something like this. But if you take a step back and understand whether this is really a priority for the organization and for the corporate strategy, it may not be the case. In this case, it could also be a bigger priority for this media client could be that they have these ad slots when they are airing the programs. They have, say, 5 or 10 slots for ads within each show. If they don't fill the slots, this is perishable inventory. They lose potential revenue. So an even bigger problem for this client might be, how can I fulfill and use the inventory better? Can I reach out to clients who can place more ads? So in which case, rather than trying to improve rather than try to predict the ratings, they might want to identify customers, which prospective buyers should I reach out to in order to sell my ad slots. So you see the difference in the project depending on the priority that an organization might take. So that's why it's always important to start with the corporate strategy, look at what is the priority for the business for the quarter or for the year, and then define the project and in terms of where AI or machine learning or any of these technologies could be useful. And in many cases, you may not need AI. So another challenge is people try to force fit and do deep learning projects. You may not need it.
No, I think it's very important to hear. And obviously, you spent some of your time speaking to business executives to explain, think of problem first and technology second, because whatever the technology tool is, It's just that it's a tool to solve a problem. And as long as you lead with the business problem first, what's the ROI, you have a much greater likelihood of success. You've given us some insight into the advice you offer to business executives. You've also talked about some of the top challenges that organizations face in data science today. For you, what stands out as being the most impactful projects and challenges that organizations are looking at?
I'll talk about two. One is in the current pandemic situation, enterprises, the priorities are very different. They're trying to survive, and there's a lot of uncertainty. Data and analytics can be very useful in this situation, and which is why Gartner found in their recent survey that the spending on data and analytics broadly has gone up when they looked at several directors and the spend patterns in 2020 compared to many other functions within the company. The spend on technology and particularly data has gone up this year. So one example, we're working with a logistics client in the US. They work on cold chain. And a challenge they were facing was this fluctuation in demand. So when you look at the bookings being made, at times it all comes together and they are not able to service the demand. At times they're not able to predict this capacity going waste. So how do I forecast and identify what is the demand likely to be, and how do I plan for that capacity? So we built a business resilience command center using analytics, which we used the first few weeks of the pandemic data because patterns changed. But with a few weeks and some training, we were able to build a solution which the managers were able to use on a daily, weekly basis to find out how the pattern is likely to shift in the coming week, and based on that make some capacity adjustments, scale up, scale down. So that is one way where enterprises can use data in the situation. And we are very proud of the fact that there are some immediate actionable decisions which our organization has been able to help our clients with. A second one, project which we are very proud of, is from AI for Good. We work with Microsoft AI for Earth team. They partner with several NGOs around the world, and we've done a lot of high impact projects in terms of saving endangered species, African elephants, counting penguins in Antarctica, and identifying variety of thousands of species around the world. So there are a lot of projects which I usually talk about in my public talks, and we have it on our website. These are cases of how AI, say computer vision, image detection, can be used for social good to save biodiversity, and that is very impactful.
So much to take from that. The standout for me is your approach to having a solution to help your customers during the pandemic. But obviously that's something that you looked at for yourself and your team first and foremost internally, and clearly it's served you well. Looking at the team, obviously you mentioned you're almost 300 heads now. It's truly global operation with staff in India, the US, in New York, California. I know you've got some presence in Canada as well. Looking ahead, as you look to scale the team, what have been the common thread for individuals that you've brought in, whether it's tech stack background or overall competencies, depending on level and position? What are the main things you look for when you're interviewing candidates?
That's a good question. We hire for 5 roles, and I've written about this recently in my Forbes article. When it comes to data science, a lot of people focus on just the data scientist role. There are 5 roles that you need for success of any implementation, any data science implementation. One is that of the data translator I just earlier spoke about. That's a functional role acting as a bridge between the clients and the team, the data science team. Second is obviously the data. The third one is that of information designer, the person who converts the insights into stories and creates a aesthetic, usable front end. And fourth one is a machine learning engineer or / developer who comes in with the programming skills to package, actually code and build the front end and the back end. And finally, the fifth one is that of a data science manager. We hire for all of these 5 roles. And when it comes to all of these, there are some common things we look out for. One, does a person have an interest, passion for data? That's a common thread which every role should have. Do they have a basic data literacy? Even if a person is, say, for instance, a person is a designer, yes, they should be good in design, but they should also have some comfort working with data. Can they work with Excel sheets of data? Are they able to interpret the data? And same is the case for, say, a machine learning engineer, a developer. They should understand a little bit of a domain. So that way, data familiarity, data literacy is one common thing we look for. Second is understanding of domain. Everyone doesn't need to be a domain expert, but they should be able to relate to it. So some basic skills there is important. Third one is communication. Communication in terms of communication within the team. Again, for every role, junior or senior, we look at their ability to communicate, because this is a cross-functional team, and often they are working with business users across industries. Are they able to communicate the impact of data? Are they able to understand what is being told to them? So these are some common skills. And if I were to specifically talk about one of those, a lot of questions I've been getting of late is from laterals, people who have, say, 5 years, 10 years experience in the industry, when they're trying to get into data science. So that is one segment where we have either taken them in and trained them, or a lot of people take up these courses, certifications, and they apply. So that's another segment, because we can't really look for always people with so many years of experience in data science. We'll have to take people in and train them.
Final question for me. As somebody who's built an organization of almost 300 data professionals, many of whom have come from a whole range of industries and backgrounds, we often see people wanting to get into data but are not sure as to how or the paths. What advice can you offer for lateral professionals who are looking for a career in data science?
Yep. So there are some common misconceptions when it comes to laterals, particularly trying to break into this industry. So one is, everyone doesn't have to be a data scientist. I see a lot of people taking up 1 year or 2 year programs, which are data scientist certifications. And these are people, domain specialists, for instance, in finance, or domain specialists in logistics industry. And they have 10 years, 15 years experience there, playing different managerial roles. It's not a good use of their time to do these 1 year data scientist certifications learning Python. I talked about the 5 roles. If everyone understands what these 5 roles are, I think that is a great starting point, because apart from data scientist, you have these 2 other roles which are very, very relevant for lateral professionals, people with, say, 5-10 years of experience. One is that of the data translator or analytics translator, where a person can continue to work in their domain but act as a bridge with the data science team for the implementations. So that is one role which they can look at. And number 2 is that of a data science manager, where they can lead the engagements, either individual projects, or they can lead the entire set of initiatives, multiple projects. And for this, again, they should have a strong understanding of what it takes to deliver value from data. So that way, both of these are better roles for people who come from a heavy experience background. And when they look out for courses, again, a lot of courses have recently come up, and they don't cover enough of the application skills. So what I always tell people is that, number 1, check whether the course is right for you. If it covers a lot of math, too much of stats, and a lot of theory, which are a lot more needed than, which are like too heavy for the application focus, you may not need to do those kind of programs. So that can be avoided, number 1. And number 2, also make sure that there are some real world projects which you can do as part of the course. Often people do some mock projects where some data is given, they just build some algorithm out of that. That doesn't qualify really as a project, because you're not dealing with the common challenges of dirty data, or talking to people and understanding the requirements and working with some of the dynamics. When you take up public data or work with some organizations. There are a lot of projects which organizations offer. So they can be very, very valuable. And number three, check whether the courses have some industry practitioners. It should have a good mix of industry practitioners because the field is fairly recent. While academicians, again, no offense, they can cover a lot of the theory and fundamentals needed. It should also be topped up with some industry practitioners who have seen some real world problems and can add value in addition to the others. So that way, I think these three things they should look out for. And once they go through a program or do a self-certification, always make sure that you showcase the skills. And this is something when I look at people and check their profiles, I see whether they have done anything beyond a basic listing of skills, basic listing of data science skills. Have they do they show some application knowledge? Have they done some projects which are not the common usual ones? And bonus points if they're doing some writing, speaking, or sharing of thoughts about data in the public domain that can make them stand out. So, and the final thing is consistency. If they're able to do this periodically, not just for a 1-2 month period when they're say job hunting.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Ganes, that was very, very helpful. I appreciate you giving us such detail on what you look for, and clearly you found a formula that works because you've hired, well over 250 data scientists or data professionals for your company. So we appreciate the insight, and we thank you again for coming on and talking to us.
Thank you, JP. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.